Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules. I feel comfortable speaking on behalf of everyone saying this was a great educational and cultural learning experience. So we're very blessed to have this opportunity, and just to reiterate, Courtney Nickel, Allie Raven, Lindsay Oaks,
Sean Clark.
Our team did an in-depth study of branding before we actually got into our interviews. And as a group, we defined branding as a management function to build or maintain synergistic activities to create a valuable personality for consumers. We also wanted to look at branding architecture, which we defined as the way companies organize, manage, and market their brands. One particular model that we focused this project around was David Aker's brand relationship spectrum. This conceptual model, which our team created, shows the three major areas which we've defined as impacting a politician or corporation's branding strategy. We'll see it as situation, strategy, and tactics. The situation impacts the way that they position their brand. These factors inside the box can be internal or external. The strategy is how the company positions the brand. These strategies can be classified as one of the four that I described from Aker's model. This strategy then is implemented through various tools and tactics that may also be influenced by both the situation and the strategy. So as you can see, the model goes both ways. Our methodology, we conducted research through both several avenues, both secondary and primary, qualitative and quantitative. This research helped determine how consumers and voters perceived and responded to the branding attempts. Our secondary research, we read and analyzed both American and European scholarly articles to get an understanding of branding and how they viewed it, and then also how we perceived it. The primary research, our qualitative, was face-to-face interviews with politicians such as Sue L. Spearman, Dennis Avery, and Mayor Weintraub. We also did face-to-face and phone interviews with Donna Milowitz, former brand manager of Calphalon, and also Evan Letterman of Escalade. We did qualitative research in which Sean conducted a webpage content analysis of 199 political campaign web pages. We looked at tools such as color, party symbol, flag symbol, slogan, constituent pictures, personal endorsements, group endorsements, issues, and communication to identify what the politicians were using. And then we also looked at a consumer and voter survey to decide what the consumers actually perceived as useful to them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to speak to you about what findings we actually saw using these methods.
Okay, so the first step of the conceptual model that Lindsay had presented was the situation, which, like we said, can be either internal or external, situational and environmental factors that will affect someone, as in a politician or a corporation's branding strategy. The main ones that we identified, and this list could be absolutely endless, but these are the ones that we saw most relevant. Just to expand a little bit on customer base and strength of parent brand or political party. Customer base. There's some really pretty predominant blaring differences between the political world and the corporate world as far as customer base. Corporations have the benefit, they have the luxury of choosing if they want to pursue a major market or a niche market. Politicians don't really have that option. Politicians, you have to win the majority to be elected into office, so you can't pursue a niche market strategy. And basically, since this is the situation, that is strongly going to influence what branding strategy you have. So for example, in our interview with Escalade Sports, they are very niche market oriented. For example, their Goldrilla brand is strictly in-ground basketball goals. They don't get into any other area. But they are very successful doing that because they position themselves as experts and they dominate that niche market. Whereas in the political realm, you're not going to be successful doing that, period. You will never win an election if you try to pursue only a small, very small niche market. The other one, the strength of the parent brand and the political party. We kind of mirrored, as Lindsay had mentioned, explained David Akers' brand relationship spectrum. The parent brand of a company, and then whatever political party a politician is affiliated with as kind of the same area of focus. So basically explaining this, for example, Calphalon. It's Calphalon by Newell Rubbermaid. They chose that endorsed brand strategy for a reason, because Newell Rubbermaid has strong brand loyalty, strong brand equity. It makes sense for Calphalon to use their parent brand and their branding strategies. Whereas Escalade, complete opposite. Escalade Sports, basically Gorilla, G, those brands, they report under Escalade for financial purposes, but they do not use Escalade whatsoever in their branding strategy. And it's because nobody knows about Escalade. Whenever you hear Escalade, you think of cars, you don't think of Escalade Sports. So it's smart on their part to not use that parent brand. In the political world, it's very, very similar. It's smart for politicians to use their political party affiliation if it will benefit them as a campaigner. So for example, in both of your interviews, you mentioned if your political party matches your district, obviously it's going to help you to use that political party affiliation. Also with this situation, it's constantly changing. In the corporate world, of course, it changes, but not as dynamically, not as drastically, not as ever-changing as it is in the political world. For example, voter and consumer perceptions in the political world changes year by year. How they view the party in favor, also scandals. For example, Dennis, you mentioned back after the Watergate scandal, it was much easier for a Democrat to run afterwards. So it's constantly changing, and those situational factors have to be reflected in your branding strategy.
Okay, this is our strategy, and what we did with this section is, after interviewing the politicians and companies, we classified them based on one of David Akers' different branding strategies. What we concluded was that Pseudo Spearmint and Escalade Sports both classified themselves as a house of brands, which is seen to voters and consumers as separate from the parent brand. And then Calphalon was an endorsed brand which used Newell Rubbermaid to help them in the market. And then the former state representative, Dennis Avery, and Mayor Jonathan Weinzapfel, we classified them as dynamic because we could see them depending on the environment, that they could be either classified as house of brands or sub-brands.
And this is the rank order of the consumer survey for voters. Again, this is what they felt was most important: party affiliation, voting record was really important, and then issues. 84.6% responded that this is very important to them. Which next I'm going to turn it over to Courtney to talk about the conclusions that we drew from our interviews and how we think brand architecture works in the political and corporate realm. So.